his story was, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. And it's worth thinking about. It's like, if you don't have a plan, where are you going to go with these students? Where are you trying to move them to? So what we've developed is something that's pretty commonsensical. If you think of, well, who do we idolize in our culture? Who do we look up to? Who do we study in history? You have the Abraham Lincolns, and you have the Mother Teresas, and you have the Mahatma Gandhis, and you have people of that caliber. And if you kind of start to think about it, you think, well, this is a direction. This is a direction that we all can move. We all can move toward that. We may not make it to those heights that these people have made it to, but our lives will be a whole lot more fulfilling and complete if we can move up along that dimension. There's a lot of different theorists that go into this. The person I started out with from the Western perspective was Leonard Kohlberg. He was a Harvard psychologist back in the 60s and 70s, and he had a theory of moral development that he started out. But they basically go from kind of a pre-moral ideal of life where you don't really care about rules, you just have to have your grab for yourself. And you go to a very, what you call conventional morality, which is you guide your life by society's rules, and that's the ultimate rule. But then he said there is another level to be explored, which goes beyond society's rules to your own internal morality system that you can come in touch with, and you can build on that. And that's where he used people like Gandhi, who would break society's rules, the society's rules of his day, obviously the English rules in that way. Or you go back further to Henry David Thoreau, the civil disobedience essays that he wrote. But that there is such a thing as a higher morality that we can all can become in touch with, and we can start to actually use that as a basis for shaping our lives and improving society. Other people have built on that since then. Probably the most well-known right now, some of you may have heard of Ken Wilber and his integral theory. He's taken that idea and kind of broadened it and deepened it. But the whole idea that there's this directionality. In education for life, we call it progressive development. And it goes through four stages. Well, one stage is broken in two. It starts out, we call it heavy. A heavy consciousness. It goes through two phases of ego active. Can you see this? Did I get away in the other room? Ego actives mixed with heavy. We have ego active mixed with life. And then finally we have a life level of awareness. And we're going to do a little exercise with this, but then just to kind of get us started, a heavy consciousness is kind of what it says. It's a consciousness that has very little energy to it and very little scope. It's very narrow, very focused on basic kind of self-centered needs, just kind of things like food, sleep, just the basics. And here you start to get a little more energy, and so that the energy can still be very self-centered, but it's kind of more active and in a way more dangerous, actually, because you can harm other people this way. Trying to move up here, you start to get people who are really trying to think in terms of other people, other people's needs, other people's welfare. Even if it's just your corporate backers. I'm just trying to make a profit for everybody else besides me. I'm not just in it for me. I'm in it for a broader perspective. But then you can go beyond that, beyond just money and things. To light. And then underneath, there's a little bit of the explanation I just gave about what kind of quality of the energy is around those areas. And then on the right-hand side are these categories, or these parts of life. Like, how do people respond to great people is one. Or what's your attitude toward duty? Or your self-image, or your work ethic later on. And the idea is to try to see that as you go up this ladder, it changes. The way that you respond to these life problems changes dramatically as you move up this ladder. And so some places that have descriptive words, I'll go across the top now, response to great people. So all of a sudden you have the opportunity to have lunch with the Dalai Lama, okay? And how do you deal with it? Well, if you're at a heavy level of consciousness, you're going to be intimidated. You're just going to shrivel up, and you're not going to say anything, and you're just going to kind of try to melt into the corner and not even be there. You don't even want to be there. You're just kind of, you'd rather get out of it. If you have a little more energy and your consciousness is still kind of small, you're not going to listen. You're going to make fun of what he's saying. You're going to snicker. You're going to find you're looking for loopholes in what he has to say. You're not going to respect his vision of what he has to do. But as you get a little higher up here, you're still kind of, your consciousness is a little narrow, but you're at least asking questions. You go in there and say, well, why do you think nonviolence is working? Why shouldn't we go in there and blast the Chinese? And why don't we get even with them? This is one of my, we actually had this happen. One of my high school groups, we actually had a luncheon with the Dalai Lama. And as one of my students asked that, he said, well, what do you think of the Chinese? Because they've been massacring your friends and stuff. And the Dalai Lama just stopped for a second and he stopped and says, we have a big work to do. He says, we have to help these Chinese learn compassion. And it was just like, oh, that was so unexpected if you didn't know the Dalai Lama. But anyway, so at that stage you're at least willing to question, why the heck does this guy do these things? You can't understand why he would act that way, but you at least ask questions about it, try to learn. And then at the higher level, you would say, you would just love for great women. You would just appreciate it. You would just say, "Oh my God, this guy is amazing. I wish I could be that way." Basketball, some of you won't recognize these names, but there's this one player in the basketball. He played for the championship. Tim Duncan, and he's such a fine person. He's just an amazing person. You hear him talk. He's never egotistical. He's never saying, "Yeah, man, I just did it. I just knocked the other team out." He's always talking about his teammates and how he just helps other people. And everybody says he makes everybody better on his team just by the way he is. So you can apply these things to any level. If you look at the kind of qualities they have, like they're like from our generation, George Harrison. George Harrison was an amazing person. He was very, very helpful and broad-minded, and so you can find those qualities if you look for them. So for the next couple of minutes, I'd like you just to look and try to fill in a few of these blanks so that you agree with your partner. What kind of words would go in it? We'll just take about 3 or 4 minutes, and then we'll compare notes. Okay?
That's true.
Okay? Okay, let's go around. Let's just take at the top there where it says attitude toward duty. So you had to fill in something for the ego-active heavy level. So heavy, negligent, they don't care about their duties. They're just kind of feeling aware of them. Going up the ego-active light, they're dutiful because somebody's paying attention to them or somebody's giving them a reward. At the upper end, they're dutiful because they like to help. They have that inner motivation. So what would you put in for ego-active heavy? We start over here.
We put in these are people who are dutiful when compelled.
When compelled, yeah.
Or out of fear?
Yeah, do it or else. Yeah, that's good. Anybody else have something different?
Grudgingly, if they have to do something.
Okay, let's pop up to the next one. So self-image. So first, the heaviest level, there's a big lack of self-respect. They don't think much of themselves. Then they kind of get into this thing of being very proud and just kind of, but without much of a reason for being proud. And then at the very high level, they have a genuine sense of self-respect. They know that there's something quality inside of them. So what's in between there? What did you do for ego-active light?
We put insecure, wants to be liked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Depends on other people's attitudes toward them. They get their self-respect from other people. Yeah. Let's try the approach to challenges. Okay, so when a challenge comes up, this is a very typical life situation. We all face challenges, right? So at this lowest level, it's a shrinking attitude. It's like, oh my God. That's not mine, that's somebody else's. And they kind of just disappear. Then we get ego-active heavy. It's like, how do you deal with this? Well, how did everybody else do it? maybe I'll try it their way. Imitate it, just kind of a narrow energy. Next level up, ego-active light. There is some initiative. They're capable of initiative. They're kind of fearless, but partly the fearless is because they don't really know the whole picture. And sometimes they get in trouble because they're not sensitive to all the realities. But at least there's energy. At least there's energy moving, and you can work with that. So what did you put for the top level for that approach to challenges?
Excited by challenges?
Adventurous?
Excited.
Excited, adventurous.
Takes risk.
Takes risk.
Committed to improvement and dedicated leader.
Yeah, they kind of welcome the challenges. They kind of say, this is an opportunity. The challenge, they look at the things more as opportunities rather than as something to run away from. So I gave you the 2 at the top end. I said that the ego-active light, the tenacious, painstaking, they have fortitude. And then the top, it says patient. It's patient. They're able to stay with things, persevering probably. Okay, what's the heavy level for work ethic?
Lazy.
Lazy. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Yeah. Hey, what's the next level up? Go after heavy.
push or shove to get them to move.
Yeah.
Reward-based.
They need a lot
Rewards,
of
they want
stimulation to
rewards,
get them, so
yeah.
it's similar to the one up above with attitude toward duty. What's in it? Okay, so the idea is just to recognize, this is a pattern in life. We have those same patterns in ourselves, and then the idea is just, which way are we trying to go? And having the students be able to recognize these qualities at certain levels. Usually this can come in actually fairly early. It's not maybe conceptually until maybe 5th or 6th grade, but you can start this, you can read stories about these things, you can play games with these things to kind of get people to see there is a hierarchy that they can aspire to. So that's where I'm going to introduce my book, which is just a collection of, it's mainly a collection of things that actually happen in the classroom around these qualities. How do you work with students in this way? So we're just going to play one of these games to show you. It's called, it has to do with the quality of even-mindedness, learning to be even-minded in the face of ups and downs of life. It's called Fortunately, Unfortunately. And we play it with 4-year-olds, we play it with high schoolers. I haven't done it with my college students this year, but I very easily could because it's just a fun game. So we're going to start a story. We're going to just go quickly around the room. And all you have to do is listen to the person who just talked in front of you, and then if they said something fortunate happened, your job is to say, but unfortunately this happened. Fortunately, my dad gave me $5 for ice cream.
Unfortunately, I can say so.
Yes. Okay, let's use it. Okay, Dennis, what's the unfortunate? What's the fortunate? Dad gave me $5 for ice cream, but unfortunately the ice cream was $6.
Fortunately, I had $1.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I had another $1, so I was able to buy it.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I dropped that. Unfortunately, I didn't mind the extra dirt on it.
So you just play a little game like that. It's just a little very simple game. Anybody can play it, and but it's been amazing. The first time I did it was I was just experimenting with it, and I was working with junior high students at that point, and we had this big field trip planned that we were going to go on. Everybody was really excited about the field trip. And the morning of the field trip, I found out that our transportation had fallen through, and we weren't going to be able to go. And I was just like dreading going into the classroom to talk to the students about it. And I came in that morning and I said, guess what? I said, unfortunately, our ride fell through today. We don't have anything, we aren't able to go on the trip. And the students just picked it up and they said, fortunately, we have a free aid. And I've had different stories come back to me over the years. It was one of the latest one was just he's about a 6-year-old, and he was having a really bad day, and the teacher just sat with him at recess and just talked about, well, it's just, things aren't going so well today, are they? And he says, no, it's really sad. And then he looked up at her and he says, fortunately, this afternoon will probably be different. And he was able to just use that tool. So, yeah.
So this was as a result of playing this game with them?
Things change.
Yeah, just the idea of the games is to present these things in very kind of playful, palatable ways where they can just have fun with them. But to me, that's how children especially learn. They get it that way.
And so this book is full of ideas like this where we could use them in practice?
It was
And we're
my
trying to
collection.
go from heavy to light.
Yeah, just to move up. It's divided up by qualities like willpower, peace of mind, cooperation, things like that. So it's they're all just seeds. They happen to work in that setting for those children, and some of them you can use directly, but hopefully just put you in a mindset to look for things that. This is an important part of it. Actually, trying to work with children this way is you'll get a sense for the kind of lessons they need as a group if you're really paying attention. And it's amazing how the opportunities will come up to learn these lessons.